Have you considered your mind's latent potential? Imagine being able to control your thoughts, emotions, and even your health with your will. Self-suggestion is real, and this incredible capacity is not fiction. Self-suggestion, a strength as old as humanity, is innate but rarely used consciously. This powerful tool can have beneficial or harmful consequences depending on how it's used. In this audiobook, we will explore self-suggestion power and its enormous effects on our lives. According to Emile Coué, we are not a single entity, but two distinct beings. Within you resides a conscious self, the part of you that thinks, reasons, and makes decisions. But there's another, often overlooked aspect of your being, the unconscious mind. A silent powerhouse that governs much of your life behind the scenes. This hidden force possesses remarkable abilities, far surpassing those of your conscious awareness. Imagine a memory so impeccable that it records every detail of your existence, even those you've long forgotten. Picture a power that can influence your body, emotions, and actions without your conscious input. This is the realm of the unconscious mind. To grasp the significance of this duality, consider the phenomenon of muscle memory. Have you ever found yourself typing effortlessly, your fingers dancing across the keyboard without a conscious thought? Or perhaps you've experienced driving a familiar route on autopilot, lost in thought, while your unconscious mind expertly navigates the road. These are just glimpses of the unconscious mind's extraordinary capabilities. The implications of this understanding are profound. By tapping into the power of your unconscious mind, you can overcome limitations, break free from old patterns, and achieve goals you once thought impossible. Imagine harnessing this hidden force to improve your health, enhance your creativity, and transform your life from the inside out. In this audiobook, we distill the essence of Emile Coué's self-mastery through conscious autosuggestion, highlighting its core principles and key teachings. Chapter 1. Unveiling the Ancient Secret of Self-Suggestion. I must confess I was both delighted and a bit apprehensive to connect with the American public on their own side of the Atlantic. I had the notion that people here expected some miraculous revelation, a wonder bordering on the impossible. Yet the message I bring is so simple that many are tempted to dismiss it as insignificant. But let me assure you, as unassuming as it may seem, this message holds the key to lasting physical and moral well-being, a key that can never be lost once grasped. It is the power of self-suggestion, a concept that may initially baffle the uninitiated with its simplicity. Yet, isn't every discovery, every invention, seemingly simple and ordinary once it becomes commonplace and understood by all? I do not claim self-suggestion as my own discovery, far from it. It's as old as the hills themselves. We had merely forgotten its practice and needed to relearn it. Consider all the forces of the universe at our disposal. It took centuries for humanity to unlock their secrets and harness their power. The same holds true for the dominion of thought and the mind. We have transcendent forces at our service, yet we are either completely ignorant of them or only vaguely aware. The power of thought, of ideas, is immeasurable. The world is ruled by thought, and each individual is governed entirely by their own thoughts, be they good or bad. The profound influence of the mind over the body, which explains the effects of suggestion, was well known to the great thinkers of the Middle Ages, whose intellects encompassed the sum of human knowledge. Every idea conceived by the mind, said St. Thomas Aquinas, is an order that the organism obeys. He added that it can also generate or cure disease. The efficacy of self-suggestion could not be clearer. Two of the people who taught self-suggestion were Pythagoras and Aristotle. It is well known that the neurological system, which is based on the brain, the seat of thought, controls every aspect of the human body. To put it another way, every cell, organ, and bodily function is under the direction of the brain or mind. Then is it not evident that we are the ultimate lords of our physical body through thought? Centuries ago, the ancients proved that thinking or suggestion can and does result in either healing or illness. Pythagoras wrote, "God the Father, deliver them from their sufferings and teach them what supernatural power is at their disposal." Pythagoras taught his followers the idea of self-suggestion. Aristotle's theory, which holds that a vivid imagination compels the body to obey it, for it is a natural principle of movement, is even more indisputable. Essentially, our imagination controls every force of our senses, which in turn regulates our heartbeat and all other essential bodily functions. Our entire organism can therefore be quickly altered. Aristotle's teachings on the power of imagination are even more profound. He taught that a vivid imagination compels the body to obey, as it is a natural principle of movement. Imagination, in essence, governs all our senses, which in turn controls our heartbeat and all vital functions. Thus, our entire being can be rapidly transformed through the power of our imagination. However, no matter how vivid, imagination cannot alter the physical form of our limbs. I find this aspect of Aristotle's teachings particularly satisfying, as it encapsulates two essential principles of my own method of self-suggestion. 1. The dominant role of imagination. 2. The understanding that the results of self-suggestion are limited to what is physically possible. I will delve deeper into these crucial points in a later chapter. Unfortunately, these profound truths, passed down from antiquity, have often been shrouded in abstract notions or esoteric mystery, making them seemingly inaccessible to the average person. I've had the privilege of deciphering the hidden meaning of the ancient philosophers, extracting the essence of this vital principle, and formulating it in a way that is simple and understandable for modern humanity. I've also had the joy of witnessing its successful practice by thousands of individuals over the past 2 decades who have broken free from the shackles of negative suggestions and become masters of their own destinies. Let me be clear, I am not a healer. I can only teach others to heal themselves and maintain perfect health. Moreover, I hope to demonstrate that the applications of self-suggestion are virtually limitless. We are not only capable of controlling and modifying our physical functions, but can also develop our moral and mental faculties in any desired direction through the proper exercise of suggestion. In the field of education, there is vast potential for suggestions. From birth to death, we are all slaves to suggestion. Our destinies are shaped by it. It is an all-powerful tyrant, and unless we pay attention, we become its blind instruments. But we have the power to turn the tables, to discipline suggestions, and to direct it according to our own will. This is when suggestion transforms into self-suggestion. We take the reins into our own hands and become masters of the most marvelous instrument imaginable. Nothing is impossible for us except, of course, that which is contrary to the laws of nature and the universe. How do we achieve this mastery? First, we must thoroughly understand the elements of the mental mechanism that constitutes the human being. Our mental personality is composed of the conscious and the subconscious. It's often assumed that our power and actions depend almost exclusively on our conscious selves. However, we're beginning to understand that compared to the vastness of the subconscious mind, the conscious mind is but a tiny island in a vast ocean, subject to storms and turbulence. The subconscious mind is a permanent and ultra-sensitive photographic plate, recording everything, every thought, from the most trivial to the most sublime. It is not only the source of creation and inspiration, but also the mysterious power that germinates ideas and manifests them into conscious action. If we agree that the starting point of our joys, sorrows, ailments, well-being, and aspirations lies in our subconscious, then we can logically deduce that every idea germinated in our mind tends to materialize. Countless examples from everyday life confirm this truth. To illustrate the impact of thought on our emotions, we need only recall a serious accident or a harrowing spectacle we've witnessed. We immediately feel sensations of pain or horror, the intensity varying with our individual temperament. A simpler, perhaps even more striking example is the classic lemon test. Imagine sucking on a sour, juicy lemon, and inevitably your mouth will water. What happened? Simply put, under the influence of the idea, your glands have started working and secreted a copious amount of saliva, almost as much as if you had actually bitten into a real lemon. Similarly, merely thinking of a squeaky pencil being drawn perpendicularly across a chalkboard can send shivers down your spine and contort your face, as contracted nerves send a chill from the back of your head down your entire spine. These examples highlight the inseparable connection between the physical and the mental, the body and the mind. They are not distinct entities, but rather two sides of the same coin. However, the mental element is always dominant, governing our physical organism. We create or destroy our own health and destiny based on the ideas that operate in our subconscious. This implies that we have complete freedom to encode any thought we like into our subconscious, an endless source of information. The entire course of our material, mental, and moral existence is determined by these concepts. It's as simple to groan about our issues as it is to whisper the concept of wellness to our receptive subconscious. I hope I've persuaded you that it is based on the rules of nature, so those who follow suit can be certain of the result. The subconscious is an active force that molds our lives, not merely a passive recorder. We can realize our greatest potential and design a life that is full of pleasure, happiness, and health by realizing its power and knowing how to use it. Chapter 2. The Astonishing Power of Imagination over Willpower. Before delving into the practical applications of self-suggestion and the remarkably simple method for achieving complete mastery over our physical being, we must address the crucial role of imagination. Contrary to popular belief, willpower is not the invincible force it's often made out to be. In fact, whenever imagination and willpower clash, imagination always triumphs. Try to do something while repeating, "I can't do it," and you'll see this truth confirmed. The mere idea of inability paralyzes willpower. Self-mastery is achieved when imagination is directed and trained to align with our desires. While in a sense, imagination resides within the subconscious, it also dominates it. Therefore, if we know how to guide our imagination, our subconscious will take charge of our material being and perform its work as we wish, in exact accordance with our conscious suggestions. I cannot stress enough how important it is to refrain from using willpower when practicing self-suggestion, with the exception of the first stages, which include directing or guiding the imagination in desired directions. This is the sole example of willpower that is required or even preferred. Any other voluntary effort will very definitely have the opposite impact of what is intended and is harmful to self-suggestion. If you look closely at the so-called strong-willed historical figures, Caesar, Napoleon, and so on, you'll see that they were all highly imaginative people. Some thoughts were ingrained in them, and their incessant advice inspired them to take action. The reversed effort law. Right now, I want to focus on a law that my buddy Charles Baudouin calls the law of reversed effort. Let's say a man who is experiencing sleeplessness chooses to attempt self-suggestion. He'll try desperately to fall asleep, saying things like, "I want to sleep, I will sleep, I'm going to sleep," unless someone has warned him beforehand. This is terrible. The poor man is tossing and turning in bed, terribly awake, his willpower turned against the initial advice by the simple act of struggling. The imagination must be unfettered. Let it do its work alone, without any hindrance. Remain passive. Through mysterious yet unexplained processes, our subconscious performs wonders. Think of the most common bodily movements and ask yourself how they work. What sets the intricate mechanism in motion when you reach for a glass on a table or pull a cigarette from your case? Nobody knows. But while we can't explain the phenomenon, we know it results from a simple suggestion transmitted through the nervous system, translated into action at a speed infinitely faster than lightning. Countless examples of the power of imagination can be found in everyday life. One given by Pascal and cited so often bears repeating because it perfectly illustrates this point. No one would hesitate to walk along a 1-foot-wide plank lying on the ground, but place the same plank across a street at the height of one of your American skyscrapers, and even the bravest among us would hesitate. Anyone who attempted it would undoubtedly fall. Could there be a clearer demonstration of the power of an idea? Another striking example lies in the impunity with which sleepwalkers perform the most dangerous feats, such as strolling along a rooftop, clinging to its very edge, to the terror of any friends who might witness them. If a sleepwalker were suddenly awakened in such a position, they would inevitably fall. Here's yet another example. Dr. Pinel, in his book on the philosophy of longevity, recounts a story of a grand dinner where the cook rushed in to announce a mistake. Arsenic had been mixed into the food instead of another ingredient. Several guests immediately experienced pain and nausea, which only subsided when the cook returned to say it was a false alarm. No such dreadful error had occurred. So I've said enough to prove the irresistible influence of ideas or imagination on the physical organism. It determines pain, movement, emotions, and sensations, affecting us both morally and physically. We can logically conclude that human ailments, which are merely disturbances in the natural balance of our being, can be cured by the right kind of idea or suggestion. The moral factor in all illness. First of all, no doctor can afford to overlook the moral component of any illness, no matter how severe. According to certain French medical professionals, around half of the healing prospects can be attributed to this moral element. I am getting better, a patient thinks oneself, significantly boosting essential forces and hastening healing. Nature speaks to our subconscious mind through our imagination. Therefore, we may help it along by gently nudging it in the proper way. The self-preservation instinct is simply nature's way of expressing itself. It dashes to our aid at the first hint of trouble. Red blood cells rush to the wounded area after a cut on a finger or other wound. Our amazing subconscious self is responsible for this, since it is aware of and in control of every bodily movement, heartbeat, and minute vibration of every cell in our body. It is the magnificent tool that we are most likely to abuse, permitting negative, unsettling, or depressing ideas to get in the way of its proper, harmonious operation. India's fakirs are frequently credited with performing miracles. It's indisputable that they have incredible accomplishments, whether they are myths or facts. This is merely due to the fact that they are indoctrinated from an early age to identify and harness the boundless, unseen, and still mysterious energies that are latent inside us, but can be aroused by thought. What are the limitations of self-suggestion, is a question I am asked a lot. To that I say, I truly don't know. I theoretically refuse to place any boundaries, since the healings I have seen have occasionally appeared so amazing and unbelievable. It goes without saying that I have to stress that one should not expect something that is manifestly immaterial from self-suggestion. For instance, while the lobster appears to be able to develop a new claw when needed, it would be ridiculous to request the growth of a new arm or limb. Some have gained incredible control over their body functions after years of focused effort. Men with the ability to control their heart rate from 90 to 120 beats per minute, or lower it to the point where the heart appears to stop, are virtually always present at the Paris Faculty of Medicine. I will go into the illnesses that self-suggestion actually cures in a later chapter, as well as the broad range of conditions it can treat. Let it be clearly understood that the human body may be shaped by thought or suggestion in the same way that a sculptor shapes clay. In more ways than one, thought is an act. Bernheim once said, "Suggestion is an idea that can be transformed into action." Indeed, self-suggestion has not only corrected functional disorders, but also cases that were deemed incurable. A suggestion has been known to quickly heal sores and chronic wounds that had refused all previous medical interventions. Dr. Carnot is credited with stating that the wounds of winning warriors heal more quickly than those of defeated ones. I can state with confidence that, even in cases where the disease is incurable, logical self-suggestion practice will consistently result in a discernible improvement in the patient's condition. The ability of the mind to heal and transform is evidence of the infinite potential that every one of us possesses, potential just waiting to be discovered and used. Chapter 3. Unleashing the Power Within. After the preceding explanations on the theory of self-suggestion, my readers are undoubtedly eager to embark on the journey of putting it into practice. We've established that our physical organism is entirely dominated by our subconscious self, which, obeying every suggestion, regardless of its nature, transmits it as an order to every fiber of our body, triggering an immediate response. The only obstacle to the perfect execution of this operation is the simultaneous intervention of the conscious will or reason. Therefore, what we need to understand is the mechanism by which we can gain control of our subconscious self, or in other words, achieve self-mastery. the simplicity of subconscious control. The method is simple in itself, so simple that it has been mocked, as have all simple solutions to seemingly complex problems. But its logic is irrefutable, and its effects are demonstrated every day of our lives. All that is required is to enter a state of mental passivity, silencing the voice of conscious analysis, and then depositing into the ever-awake subconscious the idea or suggestion that we wish to realize. Every night, as you settle comfortably in bed and are about to fall asleep, murmur in a low but clear voice, loud enough for you to hear yourself, this little formula. Every day, in every way, I am getting better and better. Recite this phrase like a litany 20 times or more. To avoid the distraction of counting, it's an excellent idea to mark the number on a piece of string tied with 20 knots. All it takes is one small action to start the enormous forces that, if we really want to, we can control moving in the right way. It's just a suggestion, but once it enters the enigmatic subconscious laboratory, it transforms immediately into a dynamic, living force akin to the ancient oracles. The ancients understood very well the often dreadful power that came from repeating a word or formula. The force of suggestion was probably, or more accurately, the unquestionable source of their incontrovertible effect through the old oracles. Why a general suggestion is better than specific suggestions. Although my approach to self-healing through self-suggestion is clearly straightforward, simple to comprehend, and similarly simple to put into practice, the modern human mind is not unlike the mentality of the oracles. Individuals are adamant about linking complex ideas and needless procedures to the healing of the body or mind. If things are made simple for you, why do you complain? I am happy to prescribe such a broad and ambiguous formula, as every day in every way I am getting better and better for any and all ailments, although some may ask why. As weird as it may sound, the rationale is that the details are not necessary for our subconscious mind to process. The broad notion that everything is improving is sufficient to initiate the persuasive process, which will have positive effects on all organ systems and processes. Over the course of my extensive lessons and investigations, I have had several really impressive examples of this. I have seen individuals repeatedly healed not only of the specific ailment they came for treatment for, but also of lesser infirmities they had all but forgotten about. The truth is that we can never fully understand what our subconscious understands about our physical body. Put your faith in its knowledge and allow the ability to self-suggest to lead you to a more contented, joyful, and healthy life. Fortunately for us, we don't have to consciously manage every bodily function. Imagine the chaos if we had to micromanage our breathing or digestion. Our subconscious takes care of these complex tasks, and if it ever malfunctions, it's usually because we've interfered with it, either intentionally or unintentionally. Each organ and function is interconnected and interdependent. If we were to start ordering our subconscious to tinker with a specific organ, it would undoubtedly obey. However, this would likely lead to other issues due to our conscious mind's insufficient knowledge or complete ignorance of physiology. The secret is to repeat the words, every day, in every way, I am getting better and better, without making any effort. You should have complete faith in your subconscious. Let go of all effort and stress. Don't strive to focus your mind. While concentration helps with conscious reasoning, it hinders the effectiveness of self-suggestion. Keep your eyes closed and distance yourself from outside distractions. As long as you can reach the right kind of passivity, you can establish mental isolation even in a crowded place, on a tram if needed, and there's no reason not to practice self-suggestion there at any time of day. I have to stress the importance of inertia and inactivity at the risk of coming across as repetitious and boring. Don't believe that you have to work hard to get your point across. The conscious will is activated just by trying, and this puts up a wall between the suggestion and the subconscious, keeping it from getting through. General versus specific suggestions. While I advocate for the superiority of a general self-suggestion formula, this doesn't mean I completely discourage applying suggestions to specific ailments. On the contrary, it should be wholeheartedly recommended in all cases where one wishes to alleviate pain, correct functional disorders, or relieve symptoms. Banishing pain. To eliminate pain, Gently rub the affected area while repeating in a low voice, so rapidly that it becomes a mere mumble, the words, "It's going away, it's getting better." Within minutes, the pain should disappear, or at least significantly diminish. The reason for mumbling the words is to avoid the risk of any extraneous or contrary thoughts seeping through the cracks that might result from a clearer but slower diction. For the same reason, I advise English speakers to stick to the French version, as it's much easier to say "ça passe" than the longer and clumsier expression "it is passing" or "it is going." Falling asleep. Those with sleeplessness should take a different approach. Once in bed, without making any conscious effort to get the intended outcome, repeat, not mutter, "I am going to sleep, I am going to sleep," in a steady, even and calm voice. The law of reversed effort dictates that if one tries to sleep, the negative notion keeps the spirit of wakefulness alive. In contrast, the soporific effect of this constant repeating of the suggestion will soon be felt. A powerful example of the destructive impact of willpower, which produces the exact opposite of what is intended, is provided by insomnia. Stuttering, lack of confidence, and paralysis cured. Stuttering is also a painful affliction that readily yields to self-suggestion. I have known cases of cures effected in a single session, although this is naturally rare. What causes stuttering? Simply put, it's the fear or the idea that one is going to stutter. If you can replace that idea with the conviction or suggestion that you will not stutter, that you are capable of saying 10 words without stumbling, then there's no reason why you should falter on the 11th. You are cured. Nervousness, timidity, lack of confidence, and even worse, nervous disorders can all be eradicated through the practice of self-suggestion. These are merely consequences of erroneous, unnatural self-suggestion. Those who suffer from such ailments must establish a different train of suggestions, saying, "I am not nervous, I am well and full of confidence, and everything is going well." You'll be shocked at the effects if you try whispering, "I am calm," during an angry outburst. Many cases of paralysis occur purely as a result of the patient's assumption that they are unable to use the limb or portion that is afflicted. Undoubtedly, these cases are easily curable. If you implant the belief that "I can walk, I can move my arm, leg, or finger," the illness will be cured. Why? Because the patient has lost the habit of utilizing their leg and still believes they are incapable of doing so, even when the lesion that initially caused their paralysis has healed. If the suggestion is to be successfully communicated to the subconscious mind, then it follows that the effects of the opposing thought must also be potent, regardless of how strong the effects of the former are. That's the whole trick. Self-suggestion is an effective technique that can be used to get over a variety of obstacles, such as anxiousness and stuttering, as well as paralysis and other medical conditions. Positive self-suggestions can take the place of negative ones, reprogramming our subconscious minds to produce amazing outcomes. Therefore, don't give up if you're having trouble with any of these problems. You are the one with the ability to defeat them. Accept the transformational potential of self-suggestion to reach your greatest potential. Chapter 4. The Healing Power of Self-Suggestion. Let's delve into specific diseases that can be healed through self-suggestion. I must reiterate what I mentioned in a previous chapter. It's difficult to set any limits on the powers of self-suggestion within the realm of possibility. Even in cases of diseases labeled as incurable, I've observed such extraordinary improvements in patients' conditions that the wildest hopes seem justified. Can we influence organic diseases? It can be confidently asserted that even organic disorders fall under the influence of self-suggestion. I'm aware that this contradicts the theory of some doctors who may be judging the matter too hastily. However, my assertion is supported by many eminent members of the medical community in France and elsewhere who have found its truth demonstrated by actual facts. A prominent member of the medical corps and professor at the Psychotherapeutic School of Paris, Dr. Bachet, has been using self-suggestion and suggestion as an adjunct to standard medical care. He recently shared the story of a young woman who was cured of stomach ulcers using this novel technique. X-rays had been obtained, surgery had been recommended, and there had been no mistake in diagnosis. In 2 months, the patient was cured through suggestion without the need of medication or other treatments. The vomiting had stopped by the first week. The same practitioner reports that a young woman with anal fissures had a tumor on her 10th rib that rapidly disappeared. The girl had a high fever and was in bad overall condition. She had been sick for 2 years and had been bedridden for 3 months. In 15 days, the power of suggestion cured her. The fissure healed fully, and the tumor vanished entirely. This illustrates that although the disease itself may not be curable, its symptoms may. A remarkable case of healing. In my own experience, one of the most notable cases I can recall is that of a young man who, if not entirely cured of a serious heart condition, endocarditis, was at least relieved of all its symptoms. He now lives and enjoys life as if he were in perfect health. One day the door to my office opened, and a pale, thin young man entered, leaning heavily on his father's arm. He stopped at every step, and each breath he took was like the painful gasp of an exhausted animal. I didn't expect to be able to do much for him. However, after his father explained his illness, I took him on and demonstrated the power of self-suggestion through some simple experiments, like those I usually do during my lectures. For example, I had him clench his hands tightly and then showed him that he couldn't release them as long as he thought and said, I can't. The boy was convinced. He left full of confidence, promising to regularly recite my formula and conscientiously practice the principles of self-suggestion. I saw him a few weeks later, and the change was already considerable. He walked and breathed better, although his condition was still lamentable. However, the boy persevered, and indeed, he improved every day. When I heard of him again, he was playing tennis. He was exempted from military service during the war because the medical examination showed that he still suffered from his heart problem, although for all intents and purposes, he was a muscular and well-developed young man. This demonstrates that symptoms can always be alleviated through self-suggestion, even when the disease itself is incurable. The power of the mind to heal and transform is truly remarkable. Let's talk about diabetes. According to some modern authorities, this condition can sometimes originate from nervous problems. Generally, of course, it's organic in nature. However, it's well known that it often yields to self-suggestion when practiced persistently. Recently, a patient succeeded in reducing their blood sugar by 80 grams in less than a month, while several painful symptoms also disappeared. Tuberculosis and self-suggestion. Although I wouldn't dare claim that self-suggestion can treat tuberculosis, I will state that it can frequently be used to effectively combat the illness. Through self-suggestion, the patient supports nature's innate desire to fight the illness and fortifies the body's resistance. In every instance of widespread weakness, this is accurate. My 60-year-old client thought she was going to die because she only weighed 98 pounds and had been sick for the majority of her life when she first came to see me. Through self-suggestion, she changed. She felt more confident now that she had the concept of wellness ingrained in her subconscious. Her condition became so much better that she gained 26 pounds and recovered from a pulmonary congestion episode that her doctor had believed she couldn't handle. Other ailments that yield to self-suggestion. Constipation, headaches, stomach issues, sciatica, and asthma all respond well to self-suggestion. There is a man who used aspirin and other such pills on specific days of the week and had headaches for 30 years. On those days he was certain he would get a headache, and he did. He no longer experiences chronic headaches and has a different perspective. I know of another man who had sciatica, and he told me in a recent letter that he has had almost no pain at all since the day he came to hear me describe the technique of self-suggestion. And a young woman who, despite years of considering herself an invalid due to medical orders, hardly dared to leave her bed or sofa, suddenly has no trouble walking 8 miles. Can lost tissue be repaired? As astonishing as these results may seem, they are perfectly logical and natural. It has been demonstrated that under certain conditions, lost tissue can be repaired through the exercise of self-suggestion. Maintaining and enhancing beauty. And now a consoling word for my lovely readers who worry about becoming less gorgeous. You have every right to want to remain youthful, attractive, and fresh, and you may do this provided you understand that you are the ones who have the key. It's that tiny fairy that lives in the background of your mind, ready to plump up those stubborn creases, add volume to sagging cheeks, or bring life back into lifeless eyes. All you have to do is practice seeing your perfect face or body in your mind, and chances are it will resemble it very closely. I'm not claiming you can alter the hue of your hair or eyes, or the contours of your nose or chin. We must never deviate from what is practically feasible. However, you may combat the effects of aging and exhaustion while also looking better. By the way, shouldn't everything be possible if you practice self-suggestion? It is, to a large extent, a matter of imagination. Suppose you have a task to perform. If you think beforehand, this is going to be difficult and exhausting, it surely will be. You'll yawn and feel tired and bored, but if you're in a different frame of mind and say, this is going to be easy, I'm going to enjoy doing it, then you won't feel the slightest trace of fatigue. The best way to make a hard job easy is to get down to it with a positive attitude. Observe the ordinary rules of health. Naturally, self-suggestion does not absolve us from adhering to standard health and hygiene precautions. Recall that we are making use of natural forces, so trying to oppose them at the same time would be silly. Live a sensible life, eat in moderation, chew your food thoroughly, get adequate exercise, and abstain from excess. The rules of nature are as follows. By keeping an eye on them and understanding the potent benefits of self-suggestion, you can maintain excellent physical and mental health and effectively fight against any illnesses that the human body is predisposed to due to genetics and customs. The doctor is a necessity. Let me add with the utmost emphasis that I do not advise you to dispense with the services of a doctor. There are many cases where their advice, medicine, and care are absolutely indispensable. The presence, prestige, and encouraging words of a doctor are always helpful to the patient, especially if they also take advantage of the wonderful instrument at their disposal and accompany their prescription with appropriate suggestions. The results will be achieved much more quickly. I want both patients and doctors to understand that self-suggestion is a formidable weapon against disease. It's not a replacement for traditional medicine, but a powerful complement that can enhance the effectiveness of treatment and accelerate healing. By harnessing the power of the mind, we can unlock our body's natural ability to heal and maintain optimal health. Setting aside for a moment the topic of physical healing through autosuggestion, let's delve into its role in our moral well-being. Train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it, said the wise man thousands of years ago, and his words ring as true now as they did then. What is this training, if not the art of implanting a host of suggestions into the young, receptive mind? These suggestions can be good or bad, and upon them hinges the entire destiny of the child. Later I will discuss the topic of rational and scientific education for children, but for now, I want to emphasize the importance of suggestion and autosuggestion for society. Moral health is essential for physical health, and it is in the community's best interest to improve the moral health of its weaker members. Given the effectiveness of autosuggestion in achieving this task, it should be clear to everyone that this new method opens up a magnificent panorama of possibilities for social progress. It provides us with the means to victoriously combat the bad streaks in our nature, whether inherited or acquired, to develop our intelligence, to curb a capricious imagination, to add balance to our judgment, to modify our mentality, and to correct our moral weaknesses while curing our bodily ailments. I have been able to test my method in Nancy, with several young boys of bad character, whose early criminal tendencies had brought them to the reformatory, as part of the global attempts to eradicate crime. I think the results we got were good, but regrettably I was unable to carry out the tests for too long. Sent in groups, the impoverished boys lived for only a few weeks before being sent to the central facility in a different city. However, the French authorities are quite interested in carrying out a long-term trial of my approach, and I want to commit myself to this work soon. Furthermore, I can report that I have observed a tremendous deal of interest in America in the topic of autosuggestion as a deterrent to the growth in crime. It's a well-known truth that crime spreads easily and has a strong suggestional element. Because people's minds are susceptible to ideas from any source, regardless of their level of sensitivity or moral strength, crime waves or epidemics occasionally occur in all countries. Newspapers in France a while back carried stories about a bold rail heist. Soon later, the same crime was committed again, and in a span of 15 days, there were 5 or 6 more such train attacks, all of which had the same execution details. A suggestion was the cause of the outbreak. Recently, a strange and surprising illustration of the power of suggestion and autosuggestion occurred in Paris, one provoking the other and translating into actions. A maniac pricked a woman shopping in a grocery store with a needle or syringe, injecting some liquid that caused swelling of the affected part. The newspapers reported a few lines about it, and the next day, 2 or 3 similar cases were recorded. The number continued to grow until the victims numbered in the dozens. Even more curious was the fact that while suggestion created the attackers, autosuggestion created the victims. Many women, purely through imagination, believed they had been pricked and felt the sudden pain of a needle stick. Interestingly, there was a similar epidemic in the time of Louis XV. The 17th century scalpings of women, in which insane thugs scalped 1 or more women every day for a while, provide another illustration of criminal contagion. There was a similar epidemic 20 years ago. Cinema films have to be viewed as a kind of criminal school in certain ways because of the devastating consequences of suggestions on minds that are imbalanced or underdeveloped. In my country, a lot of young lives have been destroyed because of the trend for fiction written in the Nick Carter style. Thus, the significance that suggestion plays in inciting crime has been proved by reformatories. It's clear that autosuggestion and suggestion power contribute significantly to the propagation of illegal behavior. It may be possible to lower crime rates and rehabilitate individuals who have fallen into criminal habits by using these forces for good. There is no doubt that these techniques need to be thoroughly tested, and society might greatly benefit from them. It is logical to assume that suggestion is equally effective as a weapon against crime. The idea is everything, as it carries the seed of action. The potential for suggestion in reformatories is immense. It could be practiced collectively, with the seed of suggestion sown indiscriminately at first, and soon the fertile ground would be revealed by its fruits. Then it would be necessary to separate the good from the bad, for by the eternal law of the contagion of ideas, those influenced by suggestions would reinforce each other, while the proximity of the refractory would tend to increase their resistance to good suggestions. Can vice be overcome? To those who ask me if vice can truly be conquered, I respond emphatically yes. Through prolonged and repeated suggestion, character can be modified. One proof that education or suggestion modifies character is that even the strongest instinct of self-preservation can be overcome, as evidenced by many acts of sublime and total self-abnegation in favor of others recorded throughout all ages. Suggestion acts as a brake on bad instincts. That is its negative role. It also has a positive role as a driving force for good impulses. Applied systematically and scientifically, there is no doubt that a large portion of those labeled as criminals could be rehabilitated, and thousands transformed into clean thinking, clean living, and useful citizens. This is especially true for the young, with their sharp and vigorous imaginations open to any impression. Without a doubt, it is the duty of those in authority to ensure that their imaginations are fed with something better than the seeds of crime. The susceptibility of youth is such that, except in the fortunately rare cases of thoroughly bad characters, it is easy to create vivid images or ideas of good actions in their minds. Once anchored in the subconscious, these ideas must inevitably develop and eventually manifest in actions. Imagine a young mind teeming with potential, capable of absorbing and nurturing ideas that could shape the future. If we feed these minds with the right suggestions, we plant the seeds of integrity, kindness, and responsibility. The powerful tool of suggestion can cultivate a generation that not only refrains from crime, but actively contributes to the well-being of society. We must recognize the importance of this method in our reformatories and beyond. By systematically applying positive suggestions, we can rehabilitate even those who have strayed farthest from the path of righteousness. It is within our power to transform lives, to turn potential criminals into upstanding citizens, and to create a society where good instincts prevail over bad. In conclusion, The power of suggestion is undeniable. When wielded correctly, it becomes a beacon of hope, a tool for profound and lasting change. We owe it to ourselves and future generations to harness this power, to guide the young and reform the lost, and to build a community grounded in positive, constructive, and benevolent ideas. Let us embrace the potential of suggestion and autosuggestion, and embark on this noble mission of transforming lives and uplifting society. As paradoxical as it may seem to those who have not fully grasped the principles and workings of autosuggestion, a child's education begins even before birth. Without revisiting the explanations I've provided in previous chapters, suffice it to say that the imagination plays a supreme role in all life's functions. By channeling it, through the practice of autosuggestion, a future mother can not only determine the sex of her child, as some medical authorities have demonstrated, but also largely shape the child's physical and moral characteristics. She needs only allow her imagination to implant in her subconscious the image of the son or daughter she desires and the qualities she wishes the unborn baby to possess. The outcome is assured. Even more important, perhaps, is the fact that such a child will respond to suggestions more easily than most. This does not mean that their character will be weak. On the contrary, it is likely that as they grow they will exchange suggestions for autosuggestion and achieve perfect self-mastery. It is essential to remember that our actions and behaviors are largely the result of past external suggestions or examples. Therefore, the importance of beginning a child's education early and controlling the suggestions meant to influence and shape their young mind should be obvious to all parents and educators. Care must be taken by parents and educators to instill only positive ideas and shield the youngsters from negative ones at all costs. I'll try to offer some broad principles or recommendations on how to go about this, which can obviously be adjusted or tailored to certain topics and situations. When interacting with kids, keep your temper in check. Use a gentle yet firm tone of voice to convince them to follow your instructions without giving them any reason to rebel against you. Never give a youngster the runaround, since you could make them feel afraid, grumpy, or even hostile. Refrain from criticizing people in front of kids, since they will undoubtedly emulate you, and rumors may frequently end badly. Make an effort to arouse in them an interest in nature. Respond to their inquiries with humor and clarity to maintain their attention. Avoid dismissing them, as many of us are inclined to do, by saying things like, "Don't bother me, you'll know later," and so on. Most importantly, never call a child a lark, a lazybone, a fool, or worse. Recall that, like recommendations of a better kind, such suggestions are likely to come to pass. The early years are crucial for a child's growth, and the advice they are given at this time can have a lasting impact on their life. Therefore, it is the responsibility of parents and teachers to carefully tend to the developing mind, protecting it from negative influences and offering constructive guidance. Children can be raised in a loving and caring atmosphere and develop into self-assured, well-rounded adults, fostering inquisitiveness, offering precise and considered responses to their questions, and advancing an optimistic outlook on both the self and the environment will lay the groundwork for a lifetime of education and personal development. It is within our power to shape the next generation through the power of suggestion and autosuggestion. By planting seeds of kindness, resilience, and integrity in the minds of our children, we can cultivate a future filled with compassionate, self-assured, and capable individuals. Let us embrace this responsibility with dedication and care, knowing that the impact of our efforts will echo through the lives of these young souls and beyond. Encouragement is especially vital for children. It's better to tell a child inclined to laziness or negligence, "Well, today you did much better than usual. I'm very pleased with your work. You're improving." It may not be entirely true, but that doesn't matter. The idea of improvement, excellence, and effort will take root in the child's mind, and gradually, with judicious encouragement, it will unconsciously transform into a reality. Avoid talking about illnesses in front of children, because autosuggestion can quickly bring the idea to the physical plane and develop the very illness you want to avoid. Instead, teach them that good health is normal and illness is an anomaly, a humiliation that only results from disregarding the laws of nature. Never frighten children. Do not let a child fear the elements. Man is made to endure cold, heat, rain, wind, and so forth without harmful effects. It's only an idea that creates weakness. It's cruel to scare children with stories of monsters, goblins, and the like. The fear thus instilled can persist into adulthood and ruin their lives and destinies. Make your job look good. A youngster can easily be made to enjoy studying and working by making the lectures engaging with relevant tales, smiling while clarifying complex concepts, and giving the sense that everything is really simple. The goal of a teacher should be to have their pupils looking forward to the following lesson. It is certainly necessary to inculcate a love of work together with the belief that work is normal and necessary, and that idleness is unnatural, unhealthy, and the source of many moral and bodily ills. Such recommendations are easily absorbed by a child's developing mind, which helps to mold and develop their character over time. Give only positive examples to learn. Enumerating every attribute that a child ought to have is superfluous and outside the purview of this chapter. The application of autosuggestion and suggestion in their creation and education is what I want to clarify. Although this is common knowledge, learning about the power of autosuggestion makes us even more aware of the fact that example always speaks louder than doctrine. Youngsters are extremely receptive to cues and are always eager to emulate positive or negative behavior. Thus, the primary responsibility of parents and educators is to lead by example. Suggestions for children while they sleep can be practiced with wonderful effects to correct any character defect and to develop missing qualities. Every night, just when the child is about to fall asleep or when already asleep, stand about a meter away and softly murmur what you wish to achieve, repeating 15 to 20 times the qualities you want to instill and the effects you wish to correct. Do not fear repeating the same phrases monotonously. It is the most powerful means of reaching the subconscious. It does not need eloquence to be impressed. Simply stating the idea is sufficient. More than that is counterproductive to the goals you seek. By utilizing suggestion and autosuggestion, we can greatly influence and mold the character and future of our children. A child's mind is like soft clay, ready to be shaped and formed. Through thoughtful and positive suggestions, we can instill a sense of confidence, health, and curiosity, fostering a lifelong love of learning and self-improvement. In conclusion, parents and educators can use the power of suggestion as a very effective tool. When applied properly, it can help kids develop solid, constructive attitudes and habits that will set the stage for their success and well-being in the future. The young brains entrusted to our care need our patience, kindness, and steadfast support. Let us pledge to use this power properly, understanding that the seeds we sow today will blossom into the virtues and strengths of tomorrow. Teachers that consistently employ suggestions can accomplish remarkable outcomes in the classroom. Children, I'm confident that you will be good, polite, and kind to everyone, and obedient to your parents and teachers. Teachers should ask the pupils to close their eyes before beginning class each day. Since you are aware that their observations are beneficial to you, you will constantly pay attention to them. Because of your intelligence, you enjoy everything about your work, even the things you didn't used to like. You will pay close attention to what your teacher says in class at all times. All you will feel sorry for are other kids who might be playing and squandering their time during the class. No matter what the subject of the class is, you are so brilliant that you will absorb it easily and retain all that you learn. Everything will be kept in reserve in your mind, ready to be accessed when needed. Character is shaped by imagination. The above is merely a sample of what could be said as a suggestion. Teachers can modify and undoubtedly improve it to suit their particular needs. The important thing is to practice suggestions in this manner. It doesn't matter if the children laugh a little at first or if their attention strays. Over time, as the morning suggestion becomes routine, they will listen automatically to the words without even consciously hearing them. The words will still reach the subconscious, and the ideas conveyed will do their work just as effectively. In essence, it is crucial for a child to be imbued with the right kind of suggestions. Everything depends on it. Playing with the imagination is key because character is formed through imagination. Most often, what is attributed to heredity in both moral and physical domains results from ideas germinated by example. It is impossible to believe that a child is born a criminal. They become one through autosuggestion in the same way they can become a valuable member of the community as a result of autosuggestion guided in the right direction. Teachers, therefore, have a profound responsibility. By utilizing positive suggestions, they can significantly influence the development of their students' character and intellect. Encouraging a positive mindset and reinforcing good behaviors through suggestion can lead to lasting beneficial effects on the child's life. Additionally, when children are exposed to positive suggestions regularly, it becomes a natural part of their thinking process. They begin to internalize these positive affirmations, which help them build a strong, confident, and resilient character. This method not only enhances their learning experience, but also prepares them to face life's challenges with a constructive attitude. Moreover, implementing these techniques can transform the classroom environment. Students become more engaged, attentive, and eager to learn. They develop a sense of respect for their teachers and peers, and cultivate a cooperative and harmonious atmosphere. This positive cycle of reinforcement and growth benefits not just the individual child but the entire class, creating a nurturing and supportive educational setting. In conclusion, the power of suggestion, when effectively harnessed, can be a powerful tool in shaping young minds. Teachers, by incorporating these practices into their daily routine, can play a pivotal role in guiding their students toward a path of excellence, kindness, and intellectual curiosity. Let us embrace this approach, understanding that the seeds of positive suggestions we plant today will bloom into the virtues and strengths of tomorrow's adults. Chapter 7. How Autosuggestion Shapes Our Lives. The gentleman bourgeois, Messier Holding, was a prose speaker without realizing it. Similarly, we all engage in autosuggestion, frequently without realizing it. There is a limit to how much autosuggestion can occur naturally without conscious thought. But when we learn to exploit it for our own gain and comprehend its workings, how much more potent it becomes. Although breathing is an automatic process, we may intentionally change it. By practicing regular breathing exercises and learning how to breathe in a particular way, we can improve our health. Likewise with autosuggestion, we take charge of our fates when we recognize its strength and learn how to harness it. Infants practice autosuggestion instinctively. To give you an example, imagine a crying newborn in its crib. Its mother picks the baby up right away. The infant is put back in the crib after stopping to cry. Once again, the infant cries but stops when they are lifted up. The outcome remains the same, even if you repeat this process virtually endlessly. Without conscious thought, the youngster engages in autosuggestion instinctively. It receives the satisfaction of its unspoken need to be held while it sobs. In contrast, if the infant is left to weep by itself, its subconscious will take note of this, and it won't bother wailing, as it understands that it will be ineffective. For everyone, from conception to death, self-mastery equates to health. Our subconscious brains rule us. We are autosuggestion beings. Thankfully, we have reason to direct it. But like anything else, autosuggestion science needs to be studied. It's about becoming completely self-aware in order to master the subconscious mind. This translates to health and self-control. Prevention is better than cure. The idea of good health engenders good health, and if we are attacked by illness, we have an infinitely greater chance of resisting and quickly getting rid of it through the practice of autosuggestion than if we know nothing of its principles. Haven't you noticed during epidemics that people who go about their business calmly without worrying about themselves and without thinking about the epidemic except to tell themselves they are sure not to contract the disease, are almost always immune and escape contagion? On the other hand, those who are nervous, frightened by the cases around them, and who allow their thoughts to constantly dwell on the prevailing disease, are sure to fall ill despite all their precautions. Remarkable instances of the power of persuasion are documented in the Faculty of Paris Annals. Among many other stories, Professor Boucher tells of an elderly woman who was near death following a difficult medical procedure. 2 days later, Her son was supposed to arrive from India. It was not conceivable for a human to live that long. The suggestion method was employed. They informed her that she was on the mend and would see her son the next day. The outcome was a total triumph. The elderly woman lived for 15 days, which was miraculous from a medical perspective. There is no denying autosuggestion's strength. We may accomplish our objectives, enhance our health, and even get over seemingly insurmountable challenges by comprehending and using it. Are you prepared to reach your greatest potential? Equally miraculous in appearance was the case of a man who held an important position in Nancy a few years ago. He came to me suffering from sinusitis. He had been operated on 11 times, yet the terrible disease continued to wreak havoc. He was in a horrible state, physically and morally. Day and night, without interruption, the unfortunate man was tortured by excruciating pains in his head that prevented him from sleeping. His weakness was extreme, and his appetite non-existent. Most of the time he lay helpless on a sofa. I confess that I had little hope of being able to do anything for him. However, I endeavored to convince him of the effectiveness of the suggestion, and although there seemed to be no improvement during 5 or 6 sessions, I could see that the man, ill as he was, had acquired an absolute faith in the soundness of the theories I had expounded to him. He told me that every day he directed his subconscious towards the idea of curing his disease. Then one day he told me that he thought he felt a slight improvement, but that he wasn't very sure. However, it was the truth, and the improvement continued rapidly. A complete cure occurred. Today, that man is perfectly healthy and able to work without fatigue. The nasal discharges that occurred daily had finally ceased. I remember another amazing instance of group autosuggestion, which was more or less automatic. It happened at the Paris hospital where Dr. Renaud worked. Recently, a novel serum was found that was purported to treat tuberculosis. Patients underwent testing for it. Everyone appeared to exhibit improvement right away after the shots. The coughing stopped, further problems vanished, and everyone's overall health started to improve significantly. However, it was soon discovered that the well-known serum, from which the patients had unknowingly anticipated so much, was actually just a regular medication that had undergone unsuccessful testing before. The patients lost all the progress they had made, and their previous illnesses returned as soon as their illusions faded. Miracles still occur today, just as they did in the past. Since, of course, miracles do not exist, I am referring to the phenomena that are referred to as such. The marvel of our times is autosuggestion, a wonderful force bestowed upon us by nature that, with enough exploration of its secrets, might endow us with superhuman abilities. Fatalism and mortality will become meaningless. Furthermore, they won't be able to exist other than in our misguided imaginations, because we alone will be in control of shaping our own fate, always overcoming the outside situations and circumstances that occasionally come our way. At this juncture, it's intriguing to peer into the future of autosuggestion. I have no doubt that its principles are firmly established, providing a solid foundation for practical application. This application will become increasingly widespread as these principles become more widely known, especially among medical professionals. I cannot emphasize enough that autosuggestion, far from conflicting with medical science, is perfectly in harmony with it. It is destined to become one of the most powerful healing elements at the disposal of physicians. The late 19th century saw considerable activity in psychological research, with Charcot and the renowned Salpêtrière school leading the charge in proclaiming the curative possibilities of suggestion. In Nancy, Liébaut and Bernheim were also at the forefront of this movement. However, psychological research was stifled by a wave of materialism and fatalism. A period of skepticism followed, declaring thought to be merely a secretion of the brain and consciousness, a mere mass of sensations, doomed to be the plaything of circumstances. Our ailments were deemed irreparable because they were inherited, and it was useless to fight against the legacy of the past. This conception permeated the philosophy of the time, transforming poets into pessimists and turning doctors into fatalists. Psychology seemed to separate completely from philosophy. Ideas were considered effects, incapable of being causes. Doubt and pessimism gripped the minds of the intellectual classes, and filtered down to the masses. But a reaction was imminent. A new, brighter and healthier philosophy soon emerged, with Bergson and others revealing the astonishing natural forces at our disposal that had been ignored or neglected for so long. If I mention myself here, it is simply to say that I have done nothing more than demonstrate the possibility for each individual to use, for their own physical and moral well-being, the power of the subconscious, revealed by the diffuse and abstract notions of this new school of philosophy. I think I can already provide the groundwork for a new practical philosophy with well-defined therapeutic applications. Others will carry on the job. The human mind is undoubtedly a lot more powerful force than previously thought. The fact that suggestions and autosuggestion have been used to cure illnesses, including organic ones, has come to highlight the significance of this concept in the treatment of physical ailments. In London, Paris, and New York, institutes dedicated to the practice of autosuggestion are being established. The theory of autosuggestion has advanced from the point of pure experimentation to the point of broad applicability. It is already riding high in Paris on the wave of a huge scientific movement that is expected to expand quickly, led by a number of passionate faculty members, intellectuals, and philosophers. It is my goal that other institutes for the study and use of autosuggestion will be established in various places across the globe. One has already been founded. There is one in New York soon. At the Institute in Paris, a body of trained men and women, some belonging to the medical profession, like my disciple Dr. Pierre Bachet, as well as Professor de la École des Hautes Études and Dr. Bayot, constitute a permanent teaching body whose mission is to disseminate, through explanations and experiments, the knowledge of the so-called mysterious forces that we all possess, and to show patients how to use them for the benefit of their own health. Autosuggestion is starting to be used in education, sociology, and therapy as an experimental science and first-order component. I am confident that the establishment of centers, such to the one in Paris, will serve as a strong catalyst for the investigation of the amazing resources found within our subconscious minds. We are merely at the beginning of the evolution of applied psychology. This emerging field will teach us to control the ultimate abilities that nature has given us, to know ourselves better, to inhabit ourselves more fully, and to employ these powers for the advancement of our moral, intellectual, physical, and character development. The subject transcends the individual by much. Humankind's self-mastery will be advantageous to society as a whole. The doctor is referred to be the last of the magicians, but by just making use of the immense moral strength and intellectual energy that are dormant within each of us, we may all be far greater than the magician. The objectives to be met are to restore intelligence that has been immobilized by ignorance or doubt, to heal the body, and to fortify moral character. These aims hint at an improvement in human nature that will have incalculable repercussions. With means within the reach of all, we will achieve the progress of humanity, and each one will be able to feel within themselves the growth of that sublime force that elevates the person morally and physically. Perhaps one day the dreams of the utopists will come true, and humanity will shake off the chains of materialism that still separate us from what we believe to be supernatural knowledge, but which is in reality already within us, just waiting to be discerned. Who knows, perhaps prisons will become unnecessary when we have learned that even evil and wrongdoing can be overcome by suggestion. Backward children will become normal, and the dispossessed will be taught through their subconscious to become good and useful citizens. People are still unaware of the immense benefits that autosuggestion, employed for curative and educational purposes, can bring to the individual and society. But the light is spreading, and it will not be long before this new science definitively takes its place among psychological, sociological, and medical studies. It's possible that autosuggestion research and applications will progress more quickly in the United States than in Europe. I'm not sure. I am aware, nevertheless, that hundreds of American men and women have bravely traveled across the ocean to Nancy to look into my system. In America, I was surrounded by a plethora of acquaintances and supporters who were all anxious to spread the concept of autosuggestion. I'm absolutely ready to see science driven and developed more extensively in the dynamic atmosphere of the New World than in my own nation, as the conversion of such energy must unavoidably require a huge power. I'm not a therapist. I started to gain a vague notion of the curiosity aroused in America by the news of my lecture tour when, in the shadow of the Statue of Liberty, I was barraged with questions by a score of press people who had boarded the Majestic, particularly to see my humble self. When I saw the crowd assembled to greet me shortly after I was escorted by sturdy American cops from the ship to the waiting car that would take me to my temporary home, I was overcome with emotion and surprise that I was given such a warm reception. If I say that I am proud and satisfied to have been accepted in this way, I will be charged with being impolite. I doubt so, as I am aware that all of this compassion and curiosity stems from Americans' innate curiosity for and exploration of the autosuggestion techniques connected to my name. I will always be in awe of everything I have seen, heard, and read since my arrival in New York, an experience I will never forget. I will explain much more about my general impressions eventually. That sense of astonishment that overcame me on my first encounter with Americans still has some hold over me. In fact, as I've come to understand the misconceptions that many people appear to have about me and my abilities, my amazement has risen every day. I don't want somebody to believe in me in an obsessive way. Of course, it is true that the possibility of healing a sick person is constantly supported by blind faith. Even before they see me, people who come to me already fully convinced that they will be cured are already more than halfway toward recovery. However, I must admit that the number of people who can have direct contact with me must naturally be quite small. Furthermore, even if I were endowed with some remarkable magnetic healing power, which I categorically deny, the effects would obviously be restricted. The possibilities of the system I teach have no boundaries. While I am not able to help everyone, autosuggestion is something that anyone can do. Without the completely false notion that I am able to heal, my aim is to teach you how to heal yourself. I am neither a medicine man nor a healer. The newspaper reporters on the Majestic addressed me as doctor and professor, and I felt compelled to correct them, reminding them that I am not a professor nor a doctor. This was the first indication that America was making a mistake. The media keeps reporting on the healings I've performed in my purported clinics, a derogatory term for the intimate meetings I have with a small group of patients to try to persuade them that they can either cure themselves or at least see a noticeable improvement through my techniques of autosuggestion. Seeing so many of these unfortunate sick people recover from my lessons has certainly brought me delight, but my happiness will be surpassed if I can inspire thousands of people to believe in my techniques and give them the knowledge that they can heal themselves without my assistance. If the belief that one must have direct communication with me in order to receive satisfactory outcomes is permitted to continue, it will be difficult to accomplish that aim. Regretfully, it is very challenging to persuade certain individuals that I do not have some sort of impact on them. They frequently respond, "I don't care what you say, you do exert power, and when I am with you, I get better results than when I am alone," when I tell them that they should rely on themselves rather than on me. That may be the case in a lot of situations, but the reason for that is that, as I've already mentioned, someone who has enough faith to come to me is already partially treated by that same faith. Another aspect to consider is that if I truly possessed some inherent power, it would surely affect everyone equally. However, this isn't the case. For some, my influence is negligible, while for others it's immense. This demonstrates that my presence isn't and cannot be the essential factor in the effectiveness of my system. It exists solely in the imagination of certain individuals, and as I've explained, hopefully convincingly, in previous chapters, the imagination is all-powerful. In such cases, it genuinely aids in restoring health, but it would be a regrettable mistake to allow the belief to persist that personal contact with me is necessary. I want the citizens of the Americas to understand that all they need is a proper understanding of the principles of autosuggestion, which is simplicity itself, coupled with a belief in its efficacy. It's simply the application of truths known for thousands of years. I don't claim to have invented anything new. I've merely reduced to a simple, practical formula theories that have been recognized as truths for millennia. I have not, as some seem to suggest, invented a new faith. One press interviewee characterized my autosuggestion process as a direct challenge to the church. Admittedly, I fail to find any link between autosuggestion and religion. Does medicine pose a threat to the church? Utilizing the inherent energies and functions of our being is what autosuggestion is all about. It does not violate any of the tenets or fundamental ideas of any church or religion, be it Catholic, Protestant, Muslim, or Buddhist. St. Paul wrote about faith that overcomes all obstacles, right? Using the abilities that the Creator himself has given us couldn't be bad, can it? Other religious leaders view autosuggestion with suspicion because it has become associated with supposed miracles that I'm believed to have performed. Now, miracles don't exist. I've never performed one, and I never will. In fact, the supposed miraculous cures are the simplest and easiest to explain of all. They demonstrate that the sick individuals only thought they were ill. Their thoughts produced or prolonged their symptoms, and in that sense they were indeed sick. But the moment they were made to understand that their ailments could be overcome through the imagination, they were cured. It may seem unnecessary for me to respond to the few criticisms I've received, given the atmosphere of exceptionally understanding interest I've encountered in America. But I'm eager to clarify all misunderstandings. I want serious people to take me seriously. I want everyone to be convinced that the theories I propose, reduced as they are to their simplest expression, are built on a foundation of scientific facts.